Welcome to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. It's the show geared toward keeping you up to speed with the latest auto news, event coverage, and expert industry insight. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Avery and John Kraman.
Hey, and welcome to another On the Move. We're so glad you've joined us today. My name is Matt Avery. I'm executive producer of The Transmission, and joining me is co-host John Kraman, lead TV commentator for Mecum Auctions on NBCSN. John, this episode is a little bit different as we are recording live from one of the best places to be, the media tower right behind the start-finish line at Road America.
Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, Road America has to be the most beautiful, most historic, and the fastest road course in America. And it is a real thrill to be here, Matt. This is so cool.
So the entire show, we're going to be focused on celebrating the legacy of the track. In segment 2, we have John Evert coming on. John is communications director for the facility. He'll be talking a little bit about the history of the place, as well as some ongoing and future projects. And then in segment 3, John, we have something really special. You and I had the chance to commemorate a bit of automotive and racing history by bringing with us a very special pair of cars. We brought 2 first-gen Z28s that are just world-class pieces, and you and I got to drive them, and we'll be giving some thoughts and impressions in segment 3. So before we get to all of that, John, I'm so excited, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about some other recent news in the form of some Indycar results.
I'd like to, congratulations, obviously, go out to Scott Dixon, 40-year-old Scott Dixon, by the way, who just won for the 6th time, the IndyCar Series. Now, keep in mind, A.J. Foyt has 7 championships, so it'd be really fun to watch next year to see if Scott can go on to pick up another championship and to tie, maybe even surpass that very, very difficult top level that A.J. Foyt holds right now. And also, congrats out to Joseph Newgarden, who finished 2nd in the championship series, but actually won the race at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Great coverage on NBC yesterday. It was a fantastic race, and I'm sure Joseph's disappointed he didn't get the championship win as he was hoping to do, but at least he got the race win. So I think both those guys went away happy.
Yeah. Now, looking ahead to next week's show, we'll be going into the results of the Indianapolis auction that's happening now. There's a lot to get into, 10 collections, and I know you're really revved up about this. Our 7th C8 Corvette is crossing the block.
Yeah, and next week we'll have a chance to kind of break down to see exactly how well that played out. Definitely looking forward to that. We have a ceramic matrix gray C8 Corvette that's going to be crossing the block. 3LT, the premium package with the Z51 performance package as well. So certainly expecting a 6-figure plus bid price on that. Let's run down the remainder of the schedule quickly here, just to remind everybody of what we have coming up. Lots going on. Next up on our schedule is going to be November 13th and 14th, Las Vegas. Now a 2-day auction, working with the local, state, and the Las Vegas Convention Center officials to make sure that we can get in the full auction lineup, but reducing the auction just by 1 day to make it easier for the formula to work. Recommending that anybody that's interested in bidding, take a look at mecum.com for the inventory, that we are once again being very active with absentee bidding, which would include both telephone bidders and also internet bidding, both becoming a huge part as folks want to participate without actually attending in person. Then we're off to Kansas City mid-November, and also same weekend, celebrating 10 years Gone Farmin' auction. That's Davenport, Iowa, vintage trucks and tractors, along with our cars at Bartle Hall in Kansas City. And then, of course, finishing out the year in Houston in early December as well. Lot of buzz right now, Matt, going on about Mecum Kissimmee, world's biggest collector car auction. That'll be 11 days this year, January 7th through the 17th, 3,500 entries. And then tying in with that, the Mecum tradition, a couple weeks after that, in late January is the Las Vegas Vintage Motorcycle Auctions, world's largest, celebrating 30 years of that event, 6 days, 1,750 cycles, and we'll be getting Greg Arnold on to talk about that here in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Now, John, you and I have spent most of the summer and fall talking about the growing trend of excitement and purchasing at our events. It definitely seems like there's some trends that we'll continue to see as people pursue these dream vehicles, but we're also continuing to see that in the new car marketplace with a recent announcement by the Penske Auto Group.
Yeah, keep in mind, Penske Auto Group carries 35 different brands.
Wow.
They have 30,000 vehicles in stock at 421 dealerships across the world. And the big news with the folks from Penske, they have just reported a record third quarter in the company's history. I think that really says a lot about the strength of automobiles, the interest in automobiles, and hats off to the folks at Penske for really doing a good job. And of course, as an aside, Roger Penske, also the owner of the Indycar Series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, once again, hats off to those guys for doing a really terrific job in some challenging times.
Well, and if people want to buy some of the hottest cars, John, that we've talked about this summer, they now have the chance. Both Corvette and Bronco configurators are live online.
Very much anticipated, Matt, that they get those websites updated. So what they've done in both, by coincidence, both the 2021 Corvette and 2021 Ford Bronco, the all-new Bronco, the configurators are up and at 'em. I was on both of those over the weekend, and they're very easy to navigate. You can look at the different models, the different colors, the options, all the pricing is up. And just as an aside, Bronco, almost 200,000 advance orders so far. And we know that's going to be a big success.
Without a doubt. And a lot of that is because that vehicle, as well as the Corvette, are big on fun. But we do know that fun comes in all sizes, and there is a new pocket rocket available from Mini in the form of the 2021 Mini Cooper 1499 GT Special Edition. It pays homage to the 1969 Mini 1275 GT, which the brand claims was one of the most affordable performance cars of 1969. This new version gets an exclusive look with midnight black metallic paint, highlighted with 17-inch black wheels and lower gold side stripes. All of the exterior trim, like the door handles, grille surround, and headlight and taillight surrounds, also get a blacked out piano finish, which is carried over into the inside of the car. Then there's also a lot of styling elements drawn from the brand's performance-oriented John Cooper Works division, including front and rear bumpers and side skirts. Underneath the hood, there's a 134 horsepower 3-cylinder engine paired to either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, there's no word if the package will be limited in terms of quantity, but pricing has been announced, with the $1499 GT ringing up just over $27,000. John, I really think Mini does such a great job of continuing to inject excitement into their product portfolio, and for something like this, they definitely have the heritage to draw on.
And they've got the styling, Matt. The car's it's been around a long time now with a definite retro style, and I think that's what's so appealing. You combine that with very affordable pricing, keeping within reach of a lot of potential buyers. I think the success of the Mini brand is definitely established.
Transitioning to look at a more premium offering, Porsche is showing that they are going to stay committed to providing electric vehicles.
Yeah, the Taycan is their all-electric vehicle, Matt, and it's just getting rave reviews across the board for the acceleration, the top speed, the handling, driving characteristics, all typically Porsche, certainly. But what we're hearing is, which I think is interesting, is the commitment that Porsche has for the future of electric vehicles. They've announced that they're predicting by the year 2030, that's actually slightly less than 10 years from now, that their entire product lineup will be all electric. Now that I've said that, we'll have to wait and see if that happens. But we do know a couple of things, and that is tying in with all electric vehicles, the self-driving autonomous vehicles, full self-driving. That was so much of a buzzword 3 to 5 years ago. It's kind of fallen off a little bit now, as for the manufacturer trying to jump all the hoops to make sure that that's safe and a practical way to move forward has kind of been set aside. The same thing may happen for these predictions of going to all electric fleets. That certainly doesn't mean that every ICE engine is going to be gone in the next 10 years. Not saying that at all, but Porsche for their lineup has said that that's a goal that they're heading towards. And if that's the case, then it definitely is. We are beginning, at least over the next decade, to enter a new world for electrification.
Well, and one of the interesting things, John, about the Taycan that you and I were talking about is it's available in 3 trims, the 4S, and then the next 2 kind of puzzle you because they have the word turbo in it.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure why they use the word turbo, Matt, in regards to their electric vehicle, because Porsche for years, probably more so than anybody else, has been very proud to use that term on their turbocharged gasoline-powered vehicles. I don't know if that's a nod to the heritage and the performance of what turbo means under the Porsche umbrella, or what that is. I find it a little bit surprising, don't quite understand, but one thing that we do know is the Taycan, which looks a lot like a Panamera. It's a 4-door car, a 4-door sedan, very sleek, is a world-class performer by any standard.
Mecum Auctions is proud to bring you On the Move with Matt Avery and John Kraman. For more on the world of collector cars, head over to Mecum.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Hey, joining us now at the famed Road America racetrack is John Evert. He is the communications director. John, we really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Again, we're so glad that you guys are here. We had a great 2020 season. I know it's been crazy with COVID and everything going on, but we're extremely proud to sort of put the wrap on our season, and we had a great, successful 2020 season, the safest place to watch a race. Every event was open for fans, and fans were allowed to come and spread out and socially distance and still get to see some motorsports. So, again, thank you for having me on the show.
John, there's so much history here at the track. It opened in 1955. Give us a brief history of the track's founding and how it's grown to what it is today.
Sure, it's super cool. I mean, we're celebrating our 65th anniversary, and what's really great about it is that that's an excellent question. In 1955, Cliff Tufte, who was our founder, gathered a group of people and actually got some people and raised some funds alongside of the SCCA Chicago region, as well as local entrepreneurs and local business people. And they were looking for a place to hold races safely because a lot of road racing had been going on in the early 50s all over the U.S. as soldiers came back from World War II and various club races and events were going on. And from a safety standpoint, it just wasn't too safe to be racing on farm roads and roads around the area. There were the Elkhart Lake races that actually went through the town of Elkhart Lake. You can actually drive the old race course. There's lots of historical markers out there, and they used to race straight through the village of Elkhart Lake. Well, in 53 and 54, they all decided, hey, wait a minute, from a safety standpoint, we should build a track. And Cliff was the guy. And he was a civil engineer and came out and looked at the property and talked to a bunch of farmers in the area and actually walked the property. And the actual course that these guys walked in 1955, late 54, early 55, is the same course that is here today. He wanted to follow the natural topography, being an engineer as he was. He wanted to be able to create lots of different types of turns, lots of straightaways, lots of challenging aspects and different elevation changes. He wanted to give drivers a challenge. He read into that from hearing from guys that used to drive up and do the actual road course races back in the day. So fun fact about Road America is it's 4.048 miles. If you look at most road courses, they're around 2 miles, 2.7. This is probably the longest road course in North America, closed road course facility in North America. Also, it's interesting that it's only 32 feet wide in its basic originality. And that's because back in 1955, a road grader was only 16 feet wide. So Cliff made 2 passes. He didn't change any elevation. He didn't dig anything out that you see from other courses that have been recently built. He just went over it with a road grader, walked it by hand, and this is it to this day. We just dedicated a statue to Cliff this year for our 65th anniversary. It's over by the Paddock Shop. It's really cool. It's bronze. Tom Holleran from Milwaukee was the artist, and put it together with the Vanguard Group. And it's incredible, and it's a great place to kind of just be over there and see Cliff. And he's positioned in a way of how he looked back in the day when he was walking the course and admiring it. And there's a great scripture on a bench from the SCCA Chicago region, which also was part of this original group, about how Cliff envisioned the track and built the track. So it's credible to read that and just imagine what happened, back in those days, because September of 1955 was essentially the first race, and it was won by Phil Hill. And, if you think of every legendary name in racing, from Andretti to Unser to Parnelli Jones to Sam Posey to anybody that's even up and coming, they love this place. David Hobbs, you can't find a driver to say anything wrong about this place. And that's what's really cool. We're very, very blessed.
You mentioned the Chicago region SCCA. I want to point out for those folks that are not from this area, never been to the track, a couple-hour drive or so from the Chicago area, about an hour north of Milwaukee, in an area that's referred to as the Kettle Moraine. This is Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. The scenery up here is utterly spectacular, and the track has earned the name America's National Park of Speed, and I think it's totally justified. Let me just say that I first attended a race here at Road America. It was the Can-Am race back in 1974, and I've attended countless events since then. And I just have to tell you, coming up Highway 67, as I start getting close, everything kind of changes. You're getting close to the track, and from the scenery to just the excitement of knowing that you're going to be just immersed in this incredible, beautiful track with so much history is amazing. How often do you hear these kind of testimonials and this much excitement about this track?
Daily. It's true. Daily, sometimes 6, 7, 8 times a day. You can go down into our archives and get lost. I'll be on the phone sometimes with folks who have been at the 74 Can-Am, much the same as yourself, or the 68 Can-Am, and they'll come in for a cup of coffee, and we'll sit down and we'll just sort of listen to some of their memories. We're very, very blessed that we have people that still come here and have been coming here for 50 years or more. And that's incredible when you really, really think about it. They'll say, "Oh, I was a young kid in 1955, growing up in Turn 5, and there were no barriers, there were no guardrails. There may have been hay bales or something like that." And they've seen this place evolve. It's super, super fun to be here. And as you mentioned, it's America's National Park of Speed, because when you come here and you camp, camping is a huge thing for people. When the cars aren't running on the track, you feel like you're in a national park. The trees, the topography, the rolling green hillsides, and having race cars go through the carousel at 8 a.m. is probably one of the best wake-up calls you could ever have.
John, one of the other remarkable things about the track is how your team continues to invest and just have it evolve as a space. Talk a little bit about the developments over the year and even some of the current projects your team is currently working on.
Sure. That's one of the things with our capital improvement project plan that we have. It's a multi-year plan, and we're always reinvesting funds into the facility. Most recently we've redone the main gate. We've redone the paddock shop in the Tufte Center. That's a 75 square foot paddock shop and a 75 square foot conference center directly below. We've also improved St. John the Baptist concession stand last year, which is currently centrally located in the paddock. We've added beautiful new restrooms and shower facilities over the course of the facility. Several of those are available with Kohler fixtures. And we constantly look at what we're going to do next. We're constantly reinvesting funds in the facility. We're constantly making improvements in the facility. We're constantly making sure that we keep the safety characteristics of the facility up to date for the drivers and the racers. With NASCAR Cup coming here next year, obviously probably some safer barriers will be included. Obviously there'll be some runoff areas that will be changed. Some tire barriers that will be changed. Those are things that people don't really see and know about, but it's all really about making the experience the best for the competitors and the fans. But then also for the fans, we're constantly looking at improving the gates, improving some of the seating areas, improving, obviously adding jumbo screens so that people can see what's going on around the facility. You can sit in turn 3, turn 1, turn 5 and watch the actual broadcast while the cars are going around the track. That's incredible. I don't think there's another track in North America where you can sit under a shade tree watch a jumbo screen, understand exactly what's going on in the race, and have your feet firmly planted in green grass while your kids are playing in front of you. I don't really know any other place that can do that. And that's one of the things that we constantly do. So everything from jumbo screens to our victory lane to the paddock shop to St. John's to terrace seating in various areas, we're constantly looking at that. And moving forward, we want to make sure that we're including improvements to our PA system. So we've noticed that, obviously sound horns and different ways to deliver sound have changed. So we're improving some of those so you get more crisp, clear sound while cars are on track. We are a very dynamic facility. It's not just racing. So we're looking at possibly doing other forms of entertainment, from drive-in movies to concerts to other things of the like. So that's another important reason for our PA system to be improved. And we're looking at also probably adding some screens in the distant future, not the near future. I wouldn't say next year or the year after that, but we take our fan feedback very, very seriously, our season pass holder feedback and our shareholder feedback very seriously as far as what improvements we intend to do. And sometimes it's paving areas for handicap parking and accessible parking. And sometimes it's just improving some barrier walls or changing some steps or even cutting down a few trees. Not all the trees, just a few trees to improve the viewing experience.
Before we get into the 2021 upcoming schedule, fill us in on some of the other events that you currently have on the schedule here at Road America that may not have any direct auto racing connection.
Yeah, what's really cool is that we are a year-round facility. A lot of people think, oh, okay, you're done with your season and we shut down. We have winter driving schools. It really teaches people about maybe learning how to manage their handling characteristics of their car on snow and ice that a lot of people aren't aware of. Some people don't understand what ABS braking is. Some people don't understand what traction control is. And this is a way to utilize your own vehicle and learn how to understand when your vehicle is getting out of control and to maintain control on snow and ice, especially in Wisconsin. So winter driving schools are important. We also have winter autocross, which is another way to not only learn more about your car, but have some fun in your car. So we put a cone course out in our paddock. We have two-wheel drive, four-wheel, all-wheel drive, and an SUV class, and you can bring your own vehicle. You can slide around in the paddock in this cone course, but we don't want you to go off course because then you lose time, as autocrossing people do well know. So you want to have the lowest time, and that's really what wins the game. So slow is fast in this scenario. And winter autocross is another thing that we do all winter. We have disc golf. People can come and play disc golf, and ironically enough, they do play in the wintertime. We have some winter tournaments that do happen as part of our Schnee Days in Elkhart Lake. So we're constantly looking at what we can do in the winter as well as what we can do during our season. So there's always something going on. Right now is sort of finishing out our fall months. We have our motorcycle schools and our driving schools. We have high-performance driving 1 and 2, and we have our motorcycle schools and our scooter schools, but obviously those will go away during the winter months, but they also pick up in the summer months. So if you've ever thought about getting your motorcycle license, we probably graduate more students to get their motorcycle license and do it safely than any other school in Wisconsin.
A lot of the excitement for what goes on here is the competition that takes place on the track. John, talk about the diversity of vehicles that come out here to race.
Really, it's everything. I mean, again, we're very, very blessed not only to be around for 65 years and have this incredible facility, but have some of the most dynamic and incredible forms of racing. 3 major vintage events will be here where you'll see cars, everything from pre-war up to modern era formula cars, and those are formula cars from the 90s, even the early 2000s. Everything from motorcycles with Moto America and vintage motorcycles with our Vintage Moto Fest. All the way through NASCAR Cup will be here next year on the 4th of July. Indycar will be here as well. IMSA will be here as far as sports cars. So if you're a sports car fanatic, if you love BMWs, if you love Porsches, if you love Lambos, if you love Ferraris, you can be here. If you love open wheel racing with IndyCar, you've got everything from Indy Lights to IndyCar. If you love NASCAR, Fords, and Chevrolets, we've got that too. So it's really incredible. Pick your poison is what we like to say, or pick your preference, and definitely get a season pass, because if you get a season pass, you're pretty much guaranteed some incredible motorsports entertainment all season long. And I mean, that's the best ticket in town. I like to tell people it's cheaper than going to a movie, and people can't even really do that these days. So you might as well come here.
Looking at the schedule for 2021's got a really impressive lineup. A couple of things really pop out to me, and that is IndyCar is going to be back. That is such a huge event. Those cars are wicked fast. And NASCAR Cup coming to Elkhart Lake. How did that all come together? And Are you looking forward to that event here?
Well, what's interesting is that we're definitely looking forward to that event coming here. It's something that's been on the docket for a long time. It's been a part of conversations really since Xfinity, NASCAR Xfinity Series came here in 2010. Everybody had asked us, when is Cup going to come? And everybody knew that this facility would be perfect for that. We wanted to make sure that the schedule worked out for everybody. And considering how many races they have on their schedule, well, the call came from a lot of drivers and a lot of fans that they wanted to see more road courses and they wanted to see more short tracks. When NASCAR started reinventing their formula a couple of years ago, that's when the conversations really became more frequent. And we essentially put our hat in the ring early and said, look, we're willing to do it. We're willing to do it on this date, and we want to make it work, but we want to make it work for everybody. We want to make it work for our fans. We want to make it work for this facility, and we want to make it work for NASCAR in general. So those conversations finally culminated this year, and we were able to solidify a tremendous event date, July 1st through the 4th. The 4th of July will be the NASCAR Cup race here, which is going to be incredible. And we have a lot of drivers that are looking for it. We even have a lot of drivers who are somewhat intimidated by it. Let's be honest. These guys like to turn left, on ovals, so it's tough to sort of think about turning right. This course is very, very heavy on brakes, very, very heavy on brakes. So these larger, heavier cars might have some complications. Additionally, too, if something to think about is the weather, knock on wood, we don't like to say that, but we do run rain or shine. And popular drivers such as Brendan Gaughan, they know the rain line. You've got guys that have driven sports cars that understand the handling characteristics and the braking characteristics of road course racing that are really looking forward to this. So we like to say that Road America separates the good drivers from the great drivers. And there's nothing better than watching a NASCAR driver who's used to driving on slicks when you get a little bit of a couple raindrops hitting the windshield, or you're watching crew guys that aren't sure about a windshield wiper or when to put on rain tires. So that will be a great challenge. Obviously, we want it to be dry. But you know what? If a little bit of precipitation starts to come down, we're ready to drop the flag and let them have at it.
Well, and I think it's a bit of a coincidence, and a good coincidence, too, that there'll be plenty of television coverage coming from a lot of the events here in 2021. For those folks that are not able to make it here and watch some of the racing live, the NBC family of networks is going to have a lot of coverage coming up. So start checking your listings and making a plan for that. Want to do a shout out to Chevrolet. I noticed running around the track here a certain Elkhart Lake Blue new C8 Corvette with your pace car graphics on it. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Chevrolet and the new C8 Corvette pace car.
We're very lucky to have a great relationship with Chevrolet. Chevrolet's been involved for many, many years. Bill Mitchell actually used to bring Chevrolets over here and test them. That's one of the reasons why we have the Bill Mitchell Bend over there, and the Corvette Bridge as well has been here for many years. So what's really cool about it is that Chevrolet understands, Road America. They understand the car culture, and they've been here for a long time, and they've been incredibly supportive. More so from our safety vehicle standpoint, our award-winning safety team utilizes Chevrolet trucks, plus also utilizing the C8 Corvettes has been incredibly cool. And last year when they came out with the Elkhart Lake Blue Corvette, we couldn't have been more excited. And I think that color scheme is actually starting to get close to being sold out, so hopefully people got their orders in, because it's one of the most beautiful color schemes for a Corvette that there is. And Corvettes are incredible pace cars. Our Camaros are incredible pace cars, and we also utilize some of them in some of our high-performance driving schools. So you're getting the best of the best when you truly come to Road America.
You mentioned some of the nicknames that are out there to describe certain parts of the track, like the Bill Mitchell Bend or the Corvette Bridge. There are several other names out there for other parts of the track. Can you fill us in on what they are and how they came about?
Yeah, there's several. I mean, it's very, very cool. Thunder Valley, which is essentially coming out of 12 through 13, is called Thunder Valley because the sound sort of resonates, off of the trees and off of the hillsides there. Canada Corner, there's lots of different stories about Canada Corner. Many used to say that fans from Canada used to come down and drink beer in Canada Corner. And back in the 50s and 60s, Boy Scout troops were brought in to help clean up after events, and they would find tons of packs of Canadian cigarettes and cans of Molson beer, laying there in the grass and the leaves. So that kind of stuck right there. Plus, also you have the carousel. People wonder why turns 9 and 10 are the carousel, and essentially as you drive, you go. It's a long, sweeping right-hander, and as you go around and around and around, You actually, feel like you're on a carousel. A lot of drivers have said, I wonder when this turn is going to end. And some of our IndyCar drivers, they'll pull upwards of 4 and 5 Gs going through the carousel. So that's another incredible place to watch. And, obviously, you wouldn't understand Road America if somebody didn't mention the kink. And that's probably one of the most intimidating turns in all of racing, where it's just a simple little left-hand bend. But if you try to overcorrect too quickly in the kink, you're just going to bounce off the walls back and forth. And the kink has claimed many a popular driver who has not really respected it. So we're incredibly fortunate that we've got, again, a lineage, a history, and also so many great turns and straightaways here at Road America that people love to drive.
Let's wind down with kind of your personal vision for not only the future of Road America, but the future of auto racing in general. What's kind of your gut feelings?
Well, my gut feelings is it couldn't be more stronger than ever. And ironically enough, it bears on when you think about racing. Racing was one of the first forms of sports to really make a comeback when COVID-19 hit. Drivers are so well protected in their cars with fire suits, with gloves, with helmets. Cars have roll cages, and that's to protect them from a crash and an accident and a fire. But you're also separate from everything else when you really think about it. It's one driver, it's one car. So NASCAR took a tremendous risk by coming back early. Obviously, it was closed off to fans. Obviously, they were careful. Obviously, they were quarantining drivers and crews and whatnot. But we took that same approach. And when you think about entertainment and live entertainment, we told people that, hey, you can come here, you're outdoors, you're able to spread out. We could probably have our largest event ever, and still every single fan would have 36 feet of space to spread out and socially distance. You're not dedicated to a seat or a grandstand when you come through the gates at Road America. You can move about the facility. So if you feel like you're too close to an area or people for your own safety, you can spread out and move to another area. So I think motorsports will be very, very strong, because when you think about athletes and athletic sports, football, baseball, basketball, where athletes are in close proximity and there's not very much protection, you have to be in a bubble, much as the way that the NBA has done it, much as the way the NHL has done it. They were able to do it, but fans weren't really allowed in the stands. Here, we ran with fans all year long. I think motorsports has a way to give hope to people as far as live entertainment. I've seen a lot of new fans here. I've seen a lot of families experiencing Road America for the first time and saying, we want to come back. They didn't even really know what form of racing was going on track. They just wanted something to do. So I see motorsports being able to thrive. Transportation will always be there. People love their cars, and people can bring their cars here, and they can learn more about cars, and they can watch cars, and they can watch racing, and they can escape from the world. I hope and I pray, much the same as everybody else, that this will all be behind us. But in the near distant future, if it isn't, Road America will still be open, it will still be safe, and it will still be fun for all ages.
Well, and that's the experience that John and I had. I know we both had a blast these last couple of days. We just want to say thanks to you and your team for allowing us to come in and for the time today talking about the track. We really appreciate it, and we certainly look forward to the next time we can get back up here.
Great. Thank you guys again. This has been tremendous. We love Mecum. We love you guys being up here. It's an incredible, fun place. I mean, it's like I said, it's hard to find something bad to say about Road America, but it's always fun doing something like this.
Don't adjust that dial. On the Move, we'll be right back. Our program is proudly presented by Mecum Auctions, the world's largest collector car auctions. Now back to Matt and John.
Well, as part of our time at Road America, we were able to commemorate and celebrate a bit of automotive history by bringing with us a very special pair of cars. Both of them are first-gen Camaros, both are Z28s, and both have extreme historical significance. The first, 1967, is the very first Z28 ever created, while the other is a 68 convertible that was a pace car here in the summer of 1968. Both of these examples are museum quality, and they both belong in the personal collection of Dana Mecum. And this week, John and I were able to drive both out on the famed racetrack. Now, John, before we get into our thoughts and observations from that time behind the wheel, let's talk a little bit about the legacy of the Z28.
All goes back to 1967, Matt. Not only the debut of the Camaro, but also of what was referred to as the Z28 Special Performance Package. 602 1967 Z28s were built for one purpose, and that was for this car to go SCCA Trans Am racing. It was a regular production option, but not particularly heavy promoted and not a lot of takers. Keep in mind, it was sort of the era of big blocks, and the heart, the power plant, very special by the way, of the 67 Z28 was kind of a neat thing that the Chevy engineers concocted that turned out to be a world beater, and that was taking a 327 block and the crankshaft out of a 283, which displaces 302 cubic inches, putting it slightly under the 305 or 5-liter maximum as specified by the rules for SCCA Trans Am racing. Keep in mind that's now a 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke, and that combination, along with the really nice, good breathing heads, solid lifter cam, lots of compression, big Holley 4-barrel carburetor, was a world beater from the standpoint that this was a high-performance small block engine that was quick on the street. It was certainly successful in road racing in the time period, and even despite the low displacement of this engine in an era of big blocks, still a formidable performer. And of course, it set the stage for the legend of the Z28. Finally, this one particular car, this is where it all started. This is the very first production Camaro Z28. It raced for the first year and a half of its life. It then went into street car use, and all these years later, it's been brought back and restored to its original as raced in 1967 configuration. We both had a chance to spend some time out on the road course here at Road America in this car. Let's start with you. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about the sensations.
Yeah, I'll say it was nothing short of soul-stirring, because once you turn the key and the engine fires to life and then the side pipes start rumbling, it's sensory overload and you're not even in motion yet. And then once you do pull out onto the track and you start giving it more and more gas and getting up to speed, that's when I found my heart just truly racing. Now, out on the track, the car is very light, it's very nimble, there is no interior, it is purpose-built, and visibility is very good. I mean, I found all in all, there really aren't any compromises when it comes to the car performing as it was designed to do.
I was really surprised. A lot of the same sensations you had, obviously, behind the wheel of a full-blown race car with the racing tack and the racing gauges, racing seat, full roll cage, big tires, all of that. I was surprised at really how sort of refined and dialed in the overall car felt. Now, it's got old school recirculating ball and nut steering, but it was surprisingly quick responding. The brakes felt good. Now, we weren't pushing these cars at anywhere near race speeds, but we were able to obviously get a feel for the car around the pretty challenging road course at Road America. So my initial impression was, wow, for a 53-year-old car, this car really feels surprisingly contemporary.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that despite the passing of time, the car hasn't lost any of its competitive edge or any of that original nature. And that's what makes this kind of an opportunity so unique for lifelong car enthusiasts like you and I. We see so many Camaro Z28s of all generations being enjoyed by enthusiasts, and while they make great street cars, rewind the clock, and those first 602 that were built in 1967, with this one being the first, were really designed for what we're doing out here, to be enjoyed and campaigned on a racetrack.
Well, you're right, Matt, and the fact that this car has been restored back to that as raced, very important 1967 race season, is now what we've done is not only has this car been preserved, hopefully for all time, but the car's also to be able to be enjoyed by enthusiasts like us from time to time, to experience a little bit of what it was like back in the day. And it really is part of keeping racing history alive. And I don't know that there's any one single more legendary or important nameplate than Z28.
Switching over to the other vehicle that you and I got to experience out on the track, let's talk about the 1968 Z28. This one's a convertible, and it's also a one-of-one example. John, give us some details on the creation of this car.
This is a great story. Keep in mind, Generation 1 Camaros and Z28s were 67 through 1969. And the Z28 was available all 3 of those years, but it was never offered as a convertible. But that did not prevent a guy by the name of Pete Estes at the time. He was the Chevrolet general manager. He got one. He was able to actually get that car provided to him a little bit secret from a legendary guy by the name of Vince Piggins, who is very well known in Chevy lore as the performance guru for Chevy at that time. So what he did, Vince put together, knowing that Pete was a convertible fanatic, had the assembly line. Now this is key, had the assembly line, not a group of engineers in the back room, put together the only first-generation Z28 convertible that was ever built, loaded up with a ton of power options. You mentioned the color British green, contrasting white deluxe interior, and a ton of other options as well, such as the 4-speaker stereo multiplex, pretty common today, but was very, very high-tech at the time. And Pete got the car and drove the car and enjoyed it, and it had a chance to actually end up here at Road America in 1968 with Sterling Moss behind the wheel to drive it as the pace car for the Can-Am race of that year. Just, well, you want to talk about history coming back together. It's definitely happening right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a pace car, it does present so well with that green exterior and white interior. It's a really striking color combination. Now, for my time out on the track, I found that there was no denying the Z's heritage. It loved the corners. I did find I had to keep a heavy right foot in it at all times just because the 302 is equipped with a cross ram. But all in all, it really seemed like the more laps I did, the happier the car got. Any observations from your time in the car, and maybe even some comparisons about this one to the 67?
Complete parallel opposite to the race car that I had a chance to experience first. The race version, the 67, had a single Holley 4-barrel carburetor and was surprisingly crisp in the throttle response, really had good power. I think the gearing is pretty aggressive as well. But getting into the street car with that legendary cross-ram 2 4-barrel induction system, as we know, that's a lot of carburetor for that relatively small displacement engine. So you really had to be careful on how quickly that you made an attempt to accelerate the car. It just seemed like it was over-carbureted. Now, it ran good, and I will tell you, it had plenty of power, but it kind of I had never driven a cross-ram powered Z28 before. It kind of confirmed my suspicion is that you definitely wanted to make sure that you had really good breathing, open exhaust, which this car does not have. You wanted to have very, very aggressive gearing to keep the RPM range up, and you wanted to try to get the car up in the upper RPM ranges and try to keep it there, as it just is not as tractable all the way from idle up to full RPM. And I will say, these 302 small block Chevys, they'll easily hit 6,500 to 7,000 RPM. This is definitely kind of a high-strung personality.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, John. Both of these cars are way happier when you keep the revs up high. And one of the areas that we could do that was that section that John mentioned called Thunder Valley. And it's so readily evident why it has that name, especially in the 67, with those side pipes and the exhaust roaring out and then echoing back. Man, that was the memory of a lifetime for me, John. To be behind the wheel of one of the most historically significant Camaros on the planet at such an iconic racetrack with so much history during arguably one of the best seasons for this area with these beautiful fall colors, that's a memory that I will cherish, frankly, for the rest of my life. Now, I got to ask, any of those kind of memories for you or any other takeaways from our time with these Camaros?
Yeah, a couple things, Matt. First of all, let's compare briefly just sort of the different sensation of the 67 full race version versus the 68 street car. Big difference in just the way that the car feels, the steering precision, the way it felt in the corners. The street car obviously on much skinnier tires and a much softer suspension. Still rode and drove good, But man, what a difference with the race prep on the 67. I could see why that car was so quick on the track. And then on top of that, just the overall sensation, this applies equally to both cars, to be here at Historic Road America with the fall colors at peak, driving two of the most valuable and well-known first-generation Camaros on the planet, meant a lot for this lifelong car guy.
You've been listening to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. For more information, visit Mecum.com. And join us again next time as we take you inside the world of muscle and collector cars and more.